Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla, to the market in general today, and what we can expect moving forward. So if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, whatever, I do share my thoughts with my members. Of course, every single day the market is open as the market is trading, like live, I guess, if you will, throughout the day. In my YouTube membership session, just $3 a month. Link to it is down in the description below. So definitely check it out if you're interested. Or for $5 a month, you get access to the second tier, which includes Nvidia updates as well. And the first tier, of course, includes Tesla and sometimes other stocks, bonus stocks, if you will, as well. Anyways, jumping into it. Tesla down 3% on the day, closing at almost $241 per share, which compared to the market, you can argue, arguably slightly outperforming the market, if you will. QQ down 1.8%. I mean, the QQs are moving quite a bit, but that's the main reason the Qs are moving. The main reason the market's bouncing around so much up and down, like 1, 2, sometimes 3% almost daily, is simply because of the VIX. The VIX needs to fall, right? The VIX needs to fall. It's trying to, right? It has officially, broken down. You can see here, it's finally, starting to lose momentum, which is good, but, it doesn't necessarily have to happen right away. Usually it does for the VIX, but in this case, it's being very stubborn. And I think once the VIX really starts losing pretty much, well below the 24s, then, the market can see some weight essentially lifted off of it. But, hopefully that starts happening tomorrow, but we'll see. But keep your eyes on that. Now, moving to Tesla. Let's start off with the 1 hour chart. So the 1 hour chart is printing a few interesting things. I'll move this for now. So yesterday I mentioned how, we most likely come back down slightly, right? I mentioned we have some pain, and I mentioned how the VIX, I expect it to essentially come back up to do this little retest, which is essentially what it did right here. You can see if you go back to yesterday's video, I mentioned like this little bounce retest, and we got that exact retest almost pretty much to perfection. Like you couldn't have asked for a better retest, which is good. That means that it's rejected and it's falling back down, which tells me that this breakdown is probably, again, nothing is for certain, but there's, it increases the probability of this VIX breakdown and weakness finally starting to set in. It increases the probability of that continuing, essentially is what I'm trying to say, right? And that was pretty much why I also mentioned how I expect Tesla and probably the market as a whole to probably, have a bit more, selling pressure today. Now, granted, the selling pressure was a tiny bit more than I expected, but nonetheless, it's roughly in line, right? And why did I expect selling pressure? Well, because essentially when Tesla yesterday, I mentioned, broke out of this very long 1 hour descending channel, which, we've been in pretty much since all the way up here since the 350s. It's again common for a retest, right? You break out your retest, Now, it takes a while sometimes it's instant, sometimes it takes some time, sometimes it takes a very long time. Like there's always different, like time frames around it, I guess. But in this case, obviously, pretty quick, especially in a market like this, we're getting these things, pretty quickly. So, today's drawdown on Tesla brought it back down into pretty crucial levels. Number one is being that retest on that 1 hour channel, downward channel breakout. Now we're getting the retest. So far, so good, right? Pretty much doing the exact opposite of the VIX, right? Look at this, right? That's Tesla, and look at the VIX. Tell me it's not doing pretty much the exact opposite, right? Which is good. That's good news for bulls, potentially bad news for bears, but we need more confirmation still. Like I said, the VIX is still elevated. It's still not, going low enough yet. Like it needs to get like well into the 23s and stay there. Importantly, stay there. And that should be good for the markets. But until we get that, expect some volatility, expect these, 1-2% moves almost daily until that finally happens. So another good thing that I like about Tesla that's holding really well is the fact that if I go to the 1 hour, even or the 15, doesn't really matter, but they both kind of show the same thing. I'm gonna remove this for now. You can see, back when we had that massive fall, right? And Tesla had this, little mini recovery right here. Where did the resistance kick in? Resistance kicked in right around here, right? Pretty much right around the mid 230s, we'll say, give or take, right? So that was resistance. And what do we do today, right? We did a very classic, and sometimes technical analysis can be quite literally this simple, right? Just a typical support, or rather resistance turns support, or support turns resistance, right? In this case, obviously it's resistance turns support. And that's exactly what we did. We had a nice little resistance over here, you can see, right? Had issues, breaking past it. We finally gapped up above it, came back down. And look at this. We turned this level that was a beautiful resistance into a beautiful support, right? So far, so good. And this is what I was telling my members pretty much all morning, right? If I go all the way to the morning post, which is right here, you can see, all right, this was 6 hours ago. This is what I shared with the members 6 hours ago, because we came right into it. Beautiful retest, and we started holding pretty much around that area, right? Which is good. This is good. This is pretty typical, nothing to be scared about. Now, obviously, if we start losing this level, if we start closing 15-minute candles at least essentially below like 233, okay, not so good anymore. I'm not gonna lie, some cause for concern here for sure, right? Maybe we're not done just yet, but we didn't do that, right? We held it where we needed to, and so far so good. The 1 hour pretty much shows the exact same thing. The point is the fact that we're holding crucial levels, especially combined with this breakout retest as well. So both of these levels over here were crucial, and I added more Tesla in that range. So moving forward though, what do we want Tesla to do? Well, unfortunately, we couldn't keep this EMA cloud over here. You can see the flip. We couldn't keep it bullish, right? We ended up crossing back down to bearish. But I think this is one of those instances where it's, not that bad because we're kind of going sideways. And I think that it'll actually turn back to being bullish because again, just, even if you were to take away these factors, these indicators and just look straight at price action and, just raw price action, raw like patterns, if you will, right? Just very bread and butter sort of type technical analysis, it does suggest, like I just mentioned many times, that this area was a very crucial spot to hold, and we did so far. So what do we want to do next, right? Overall, what the next thing Tesla wants to do is two things. Well, three things if you count the weekly. But Tesla wants to pretty much, this level right here, this level needs to get retaken. Tesla needs to start closing. Did we close a 15-minute above it? We didn't. At least a 15-minute, but the longer time frame, the better. Like a 1 hour is even better, daily is better, etc. But at the very least, a minimum of 15-minute candle closure, honestly above 252, right? That is going to be important. Why? Because you can see that was that pivot point all the way back here, and that is essentially where we are finding that resistance just yesterday, right? So we ended up taking this level that was a bit of a support that got us a bit of a pop, turned into a resistance, came down, turned this area that was a resistance back into support, and now the idea is the fact that we started making higher lows, which is good, right? So the structure is starting to slowly shift potentially. Like we're starting to get a potential shift in structure and momentum, if you will, right? We're not potentially making these lower lows, lower highs anymore. Now you can make an argument this is just a higher low, right? Which is not something we usually do. So let's see how that plays out. But the idea is the fact that this can now bounce from here, come back up. Tomorrow is my current plan. I expect it to come up here tomorrow. It'll be pretty disappointing if it doesn't, to retest this range up here, pretty much 250 to 252. And a closure, at least a 15-minute closure, 1 hour is better, daily is even better. Above that is pretty much necessary. Like that's pretty much what's needed for Tesla. What else is important about that? Well, if we go on the 1 hour once again, you might be wondering, why is Nvidia showing so much strength? Well, it's doing what Tesla could have done. It didn't. There was always, there was two paths. We took the path of just retesting, right? Nvidia could have done that, but it didn't. It actually stayed, because Nvidia also could have, for instance, just as an example, could have also done something like this, where it could have easily come well back into this range right here at like 112 roughly, and pretty much done what Tesla did, right? And then bounced up as well, right? It could have just done this as well, but it didn't. It actually held right above the cloud, and this was that other option for Tesla, one of which, but both of them essentially are bullish, just different structure, I guess you can say. But going back to Tesla, what it wants to do is this. It wants to turn this cloud back to green, which I think it will. But it wants to, more importantly, start breaking above the 50 EMA, which is this little white line right here. You can see that's the 50 EMA on the 1 hour chart. I want to see both of these EMAs down here, which is the 8 and the 21, essentially creating this cloud, cross over the 50, which is pretty much what Nvidia is on the verge of doing. You can see very damn close to it, right? It's pretty much right there, which is a good sign. That is a good sign. That tells me that the trend and the momentum is shifting back to the opposite direction, in this case from bearish to bullish. Now it's not perfect, of course, nothing is guaranteed, but it's just another plus, if you will, or a check mark, if you will, to add to the bullish section. So let's see how that plays out, and let's see if it continues to hold, right? That's the important thing. But ultimately, just looking straight at price action, right? What Tesla wants to do ultimately is, like I said, solidify this lower low or higher low, which is so far it's seeming to do. And if we break above this, that even creates a potentially more powerful higher high, and we get a beautiful looking breakout, and that should spark a pretty nice rally moving forward for Tesla. Now there is a risk to it, as usual. There's always two sides to a coin, right? The risk would be the fact that we could just be potentially printing a very large looking bear flag. But the thing is, and the way I look at this is, honestly, even if this happens to be a very large bear flag that looks, let's say something like this, for instance, right, as an example, because it could, right? We could still, again, this bear flag could be a very large bear flag. Why? Because Tesla has had a substantial fall. So even if this happens to be a bear flag, we could actually go up and down like this, kind of zigzagging throughout this bear flag many times. And this would actually line up really well, right? If you actually look at it closely. Why is that? Well, if this plays out, and let's say we start zigzagging up this channel for the next, I don't know, week, several days, whatever, how long it takes, right? Let's just say this is the course of action that we take. This is pretty interesting because, we get this nice breakout, let's say tomorrow, and we close tomorrow, maybe let's say somewhere around here in the high 250s or mid 250s or something like that, which would look really good on the weekly candle time frame as well. Then, maybe early next week we get another small drop, but then this drop would come back down to this area and now treat it back as a support. and this will come back to the bottom of the channel, and then we, I hope that makes sense, right? We're kind of like doing this zigzag where we're taking these levels, resistance, back to support, bottom of the channel, bounce, back here, all to resistance, turning back to support, bounce, bam, right? And we kind of just keep doing that, and we keep kind of stair-stepping our way up like this. And the reason this could also be a very large rising channel and a very large bear flag on Tesla stock, and why it wouldn't just be like there's this little quick little pop and drop, at least I don't think it will, especially if we get that closure above the mid-ish 250s, is because the drop was just very steep, right? Dead cats are usually relative to the steepness in the drop. Kind of like what I was saying over here with Nvidia, just as an example, where Nvidia had this very large rally like this, and everyone was telling me, guys, like dead cats aren't this, dead cats can't be this big of a, of a dead cat. Well, and I was telling people it can. Why? Because it's all relative to the drop, right? That's what it's relative to. But how do you figure that out? Well, there's two things you look at, right? First of all, are we making higher highs and higher lows, or lower lows, lower highs? In this case, Nvidia, just again, using it as an example to justify a point on Tesla, it was making lower lows and lower highs, right? Consistently. So what you do is you take the Fibonacci, you go from up here to down here, and then look at this. There was two levels that this dead cat most likely would go to, which is the 618 and also this green zone up here, which is the 141, 142. We went to the upper end of the spectrum, and then Nvidia had a sharp rejection from it, right? And that's exactly what I was talking about in my videos for Nvidia that day. So again, like I said, it's relative to the drop, and you can easily make the argument of the fact that, to make things a little more conservative, I would say that this was that recent swing high right here, pretty much right before this substantial drop happened, right? So you can easily take a Fibonacci from this level here, bring it all the way down here, and you can easily make an argument the fact that Tesla, theoretically, now this would be pretty intense. I mean, you never know in this market, but theoretically, at some point or another, let's say, even by the end of this month or early next month, theoretically can come up all the way up to $330 per share, which right now sounds completely impossible. Like no way will that ever happen, right? It sounds impossible. But because this drop is so steep, a dead cat can be pretty aggressive. You have to understand that, right? It's all relative to the drop, or the rally, whichever which, but in this case, the drop. And obviously we're making lower lows, lower highs overall in the daily time frame. That's like that's kind of like the high end of the target range, if you will. The more likely range, and the one that I'll be personally aiming for, at least the two ranges, will be the first one, if things are honestly pretty weak and we don't really get that much momentum, would be about 275, which is a 382 Fibonacci. The other option would be, of course, pretty much right around here, which is that 618 Fibonacci sitting at about $310. So my main targets would be 310 to as high as 330. Anywhere in this range right here will be my main target if we get this confirmed dead cat rally. One thing I'll be looking at for confirmation, like I said, is do we get that closure above at least 351 tomorrow, but ideally mid 350s. That's number one. Do we continue maintaining within this potentially, what we could be creating here, rising channel? Again, it could be a very large rising channel. Like I said, it could zigzag for quite some time, just like this descending channel. For quite some time, right? You can see for quite some time we're in this very steep descending channel. So when there's volatility, two can play that game, right? You can get a very steep move to the downside, but you can get just as a steep, if you will, move to the upside, right? Both actions can happen so that as many people as possible essentially lose on the overall trade, right? That's just kind of how these things work. So let's see. Let's watch for this channel. Let's see if we can continue maintaining this rough channel right here. That'll be pretty important for Tesla stock. But that's kind of my overall perspective right now and how I foresee it happening. And of course, the weekly tomorrow will be pretty important because if we get that closure, like I said, at least above 351, ideally higher, the mid 350s or higher, even better, then this would essentially, not only get back within this large channel that we are threatening to lose, but it would also create probably one of the best looking hammer candles I've seen in quite some time on Tesla stock, because I prefer, white or green hammer candles over red. Red is okay, but it's not as confident inspiring, in my opinion, at least from my experience, as a white or a green hammer candle. So those are the main things I'll be watching for moving forward and into next week, into tomorrow, I guess, but also into next week. This rising channel will be really, really important. So let's watch for this. Let's see how this plays out. Let's see what Tesla can show us. And but keep in mind, if we ever fall out of this rising channel early, not great. I'll be honest, not amazing. So let's see. Thanks for watching. Actually, options flow, right? Let's take options flow really quickly. Options flow. Try that again. Actually, wait, let me see that. What was that? Some nice calls came in on SPY towards the end of the day. I actually like to see that. I do like to see that. That's good. That's good. Let's see if we get a green Friday. Tesla, pretty mixed. Towards the very, very end of the day, some puts came in, but overall, you can see a lot of calls did come in on Tesla towards the second half of the day, right? Some puts came in the morning. You can see a lot of puts in the morning, but as we kind of started appearing towards the second half of the day, especially like right here, a lot of calls start to flood in very aggressively. A lot of them for tomorrow, actually, for next week, and even some for the end of the month as well. So I did see quite a bit of calls towards the second half of the day flood in on Tesla pretty aggressively, which is a good sign. Fingers crossed, of course. But anyways, yeah, so that's kind of what I'm looking at for Tesla. Let's see what happens. Let's see how it plays out. But thank you all so much for watching. See you for the next one. Peace.